Hello, everybody, and welcome to Crossing the Line with me, Greg Heym. Now, this week I'm sitting in the Vince Rocco chair at the head of the table. Usually I'm relegated to the side, but now I'm feeling a lot more powerful, and hopefully it'll increase the viewership. Hey, Vince, how you doing, buddy? But the reason I'm here is today we have two people joining me. We have Lisa Castrigno, Senior VP of Research. Good morning. She was here last week. It's not major news, but how was your weekend?
It was very nice.
That's great. We'll hold it off at there. And our special guest, who we teased last week for being in the background, is our latest addition to the research department here, Morgan Wilkins. How are you today, Morgan?
I'm good. Doing very well.
Okay. That's it? Well, we'll leave it at that.
Here, so I have nothing to complain about, right?
Well, you haven't worked here that long yet.
That's a good sign.
I know. It's true. Well, this is your first time on the podcast. Are you nervous?
A little bit, but you guys are very easy to talk to. So
wait till we really get going on this. Well, we'll be sure to try to be nice because I'm sure your family will watch this. And
yes. Hello, Mom and Dad.
Yes. Your dad, like me, is a St. John's grad, so we have that in common. So I'm sure he'll love the show. But let's talk about my weekend because that was important.
Yes.
I just got back from Texas last night. It was my niece's first communion. Hello, Maggie.
And congratulations to her.
It's the last first communion I'll have out of my 7 nieces and nephews. She's the youngest one. But it was nice to see family in Texas, to get warmer temperatures, because there it actually would it'd be cold in the morning. It's like 20 degrees, and then by midday it's like 50. So that's
I'd
kind of
still
nice.
take 50.
Yeah.
So it was nice, and looking forward to going back in April for AC/DC. Going to see them because they're not coming around New York for some reason, and why not use that as an excuse to go?
No, and it's going to be a little Heym fest over there too, right?
The cousins get together and they just talk about how terrible their parents are. That's what we always say. They're conspiring against us, but
good, they're smart.
Well, that is the problem. They're a little too smart and a little too conniving. So today's January 27th. Again, we just say that because when you're watching it, you may say you're wrong about these things. We'll say no. And on the 27th, that's all we knew. And as always, we're coming to you from beautiful Studio 1873, always decorated by our good friends at the Everset.
This beautiful set here at Studio 1873 is brought to you by the Everset. The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
And we're back. All right, so what's first on our list of things to...
Well, busy housing. Busy housing. So existing home sales.
So we're all about that housing?
We're all about the housing.
No trouble?
No.
Oh, wait, do we have to get the rights to that for me to say that, Lena? Lena said we're fine. Just keep that in mind. Put that on.
Cue the song lyrics.
Yeah, exactly.
So existing home sales up 2.2% in December. And existing home sales are counted when closings happen. The reason we say that is new home sales and pending home sales are counted when the contracts are signed. Now, why am I saying that this week when we're not talking about either of those things? I don't know. Just to put it out there, because we'll have new home sales next week.
Right.
To talk about. All right. So they've risen the past 3 months. It's like, oh, is that good? Is the housing recovery in effect? I would wait to spike that football. You may remember last year that rates started declining about mid-year and bottomed out at near 6% in September. And people, getting mortgages in September were shopping and probably closing the last 3 months. So I think this could be a little short-lived, this pickup. Also, there was a dramatic increase in supply. We used to talk about supply almost in terms of days, not months. But supply hit a recent high of 4.3 months in September, which gave buyers more options and maybe a little more flexibility on the price. And since September, inventory has fallen back down to 3.3 months of supply. The reason we give it months is if I tell you, Morgan, that there's 100 homes for sale in a neighborhood, you might ask, right, is that a lot? Because that would influence your flexibility as a buyer.
Yeah.
And the way we do that is we reference it in terms of how many are selling. So you divide the inventory by the pace of sales, and you get a number. If that number is lower than 5, you're in a seller's market. If that number is above 5, you're in a buyer's market. Yeah, I said that right.
Yeah. Well, I always think of bigger number The bigger the number,
Better for the buyer.
right? Better for the buyer.
See?
The smaller the number. It's just a way, like what's the right word? Like the mnemonics, when people use like letters to.
I don't know. I didn't pay attention in whatever class taught that.
No, but you use
Every good boy does fine to remember the.
Yeah.
Like an acronym or something.
right.
Like that
So
for
I
it?
always think of it that way. So when the number's getting bigger, I remember it's for the buyers. And when
So
the
that's
number
our
gets
first one of Lisa's lessons. We'll have more of these.
No, but for
As-
I
as
for
we
love
go.
every
Lisa's lessons.
right. Thank you, Morgan.
You don't worry. You'll you'll learn to
for
go
everyday
medium and warm
people
about
who
them.
don't
not love them.
know the formulas and the calculations and all the stuff that goes behind it, just a simple way to put that out there.
Okay, well that was a pretty good one. I
And
got to admit.
and keep it in, keep that in mind when you're trying to understand what you're looking at.
Okay, all right. To get back to existing home sales,
Yes.
sales are up 9.3% year over year. So that all sounds good,
Yeah, it's a
right?
good
More
number.
sales.
Yeah, good news.
Prices are still rising, up 6% from a year ago, the median price. So that's not great for potential home buyers out there. But one of the reasons the median price is so high, that sales over $1 million are really dominating the gains in the market. They're up 35% from a year ago.
Right, it's a big number.
So that all sounds okay, right, Morgan? Like things are looking okay? Make you feel better about the housing market?
No, makes me feel a lot worse.
Okay, and why so? Because as our resident Gen Zer
I am the resident Gen Zer.
here, well, yes, we're just a little bit older than that.
A future first-time
Just a
home
tad.
buyer.
Just a little
Yes.
bit. Yeah, well, I have my own Gen Zer at home that lives to yell at me. We're going to talk about the challenges of home buying in a bit, but there's bad news in here that even though the last 3 months have been good, year-over-year numbers look good, the total annual sales last year was the lowest level in almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And that is a function of low inventory, rising prices, and rates higher than people want them. Notice I didn't say high rates, because they're not high. They're
No.
still low historically. But nobody wants to hear me say that. They want to say, well, we remember when they were 3. Well, now they're just a multiple of 3. That's all. And, I think in the coming months, we'll get pending home sales at the end of this week. We're getting a lot of data this week. GDP's coming out.
Right, it's going to be a busy
PCE.
show next Monday.
Pending home sales, which we don't call PHS, because it wouldn't make any sense. So we'll see what the next couple of months. I'm a little worried that being that rates went above 7, they just went below 7. We'll talk about that in the next segment. It's going to, and inventory has come back down again because a lot of that stuff was absorbed, and we're not getting enough stuff placed on the market. That we're going to have, again, with an inventory shortage, prices still going up, rates still higher than people would like. I think it could be a little challenge going forward. But before we move on with more great Lisa lessons, we need to take this break from our sponsor, CrossCountry Mortgage, and their so handsome and well-spoken spokesperson.
Calling all real estate investors. I'm Scott Nadler, VP of Mortgage Lending at CrossCountry Mortgage, and it's time to level up your portfolio. Whether you're a seasoned pro or making your first investment, I'll find the right financing to maximize your returns. From single-family homes to multi-unit properties, I'm here to help you crush your investment goals. Ready to grow? Let's connect today and make it happen.
All right, and we're back. And fitting, we just saw my buddy Scott Nadler because now we're talking about mortgage rates, right?
Yep.
And did they go down last week?
A smidge.
A smidge. That is an economic term. So
It's another Lisa lesson.
it's another Lisa lesson. So after 5 straight weekly increases that had us real depressed, they actually crossed 7%. They dipped from 7.04% to 6.96%. We'll take it. Okay, we'll take it. We mentioned last week that the CPI and PPI came in less than expected. That might edge rates down a little bit, and that happened. So gold star for us. We're wrong so often that we are playing that one right. For those of you wondering, a year ago, rates were at 6.69%. So is that enough to get Gen Zers out there buying? A little dip or anybody?
I mean, Yeah, I mean, I think it's enough to, get them out there, get the interest up, but it's really hard. I think that the cost of rent just over time has now made it so it just pushes people's ability to buy homes even more, let alone the rates being so high.
Well, the price of everything has gone up, right? So I think
Yeah.
as somebody who's thinking about a home, and you've also worked as a broker, so you have some experience
Yeah.
with people's struggles. I think that's the challenge when the price of everything else goes up. That really impacts them, right? Is that on your mind, like on a day-to-day basis? 'Cause I know that when we were thinking about buying a home,
Yeah.
it was always like, should we go out to eat or should we put that towards the down payment fund?
Yeah. No, definitely. My sister actually just bought their home out on Long Island. And, it's just a timing thing. Like, people are always kind of waiting for the next market of, like, spring and fall, which are really big selling markets. And then the summers is, a good rental market. But, yeah, for sale, everyone's just waiting till that next time to, like, is it going to drop? Is it going to drop more? When should I go? When should I, kind of go forward with it? So,
And now the problem, and we talk about this, is they're trying not just to time the price, but the rate.
Right.
yeah.
And thank goodness I didn't think about that when I was, because I would have went nuts. Plus, rates were only a little bit lower than where they are now when I bought my house 18 years ago.
No, I bought my apartment. I was over 7. It was 7, I think 7.62 if I remember on my
loans
co-op.
are always a little bit higher.
Yeah, but still over 7%. But at the time, the thought wasn't how much the mortgage was. It was how much everything was going to cost me overall, and could I afford the maintenance that was going to come with it. So it's not just my mortgage, but it was my maintenance that came with it. Then obviously you're going to be able to eat, and I have to get the transportation to come into the city. So the entire bill had to be something that my salary could cover, and the purchase price and the mortgage was just one aspect of it for me. At the time, it was more getting into a market for some equity to build for me for my future.
Right.
And then obviously when I sold my apartment, I did very well. It's what got me in my house.
Mm-hmm.
No, and it's hard because it seems, when we bought, our down payment was over $90,000. Like it's like, wow, how did
I was adamant to do the 20%, saving
how
that
to
20%.
save, and now for even nationally, based on the average, the median price about 400,000. That's
Right, it's $80,000.
That's a couple years' salary for young people out
Yeah,
there.
definitely.
And again, the thing that I'll remind people is down payments have always been huge. It's 20% of the price of the home.
Yeah.
And when it was $20,000 decades ago, that was a lot of money to people then. And I think that's the one thing that younger generations have to come to grips with. Even if you have money saved, it's daunting to look at it.
Well, sometimes isn't that the hardest part of getting into the home? You can afford the monthly bill. You can afford the mortgage. You can afford what the rate will be, the price of the home. You just don't have the down payment to get into it.
Right.
So everything else works, and then that part doesn't.
Well, there-
Or trying to
deplete
save
your
for it.
savings and
Right,
deplete
and
your
you need money
investments
after
to
you
then-
close too. Banks like to see that because you're going to want to do renovations and stuff like that.
We're just slush fund for, I mean, the
Well,
house
don't
is...
say slush fund. It sounds like you're
sorry.
embezzling. Luckily, we don't have any money here
Well,
crossing the
none of
line, so I don't have to
Well,
worry about that.
I hide it all in the
Yes,
basement.
thank you. Right.
I slush it all into the basement because currently, since I'm not allowed to talk about renovations, I'll throw it in there. It's slushed into the basement.
Yes, well,
See how I got that in there?
I did.
You didn't want me to talk about it, but I got it in.
as my bestie Scott Nadler would say, that there are different products out there too, and younger people or inexperienced people need to be aware of that it's not just a 30-year mortgage. It's 15. There's adjustable rate. There may be a different aversion to some of that thing, and it's risky, but sometimes these things are the best way and make it the most affordable. So the next question is, and we talked about this last week, when are rates going to come down more? And the answer is always the same: when the economy slows down, because we're in a situation where we're seeing data come in better than expected, hiring better than expected. You see inflation is still holding. It was a little lower than expected last month, but that is already forgotten. When we get the PCE numbers on Friday, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But that's what's driving the mortgage market. And, we mentioned the CNBC article last week that basically was trying to blame it on some of the things that people expect to happen with potential of tariffs and tax cuts. But, we have tariffs in this country. We've had them for a while now, and that's not what caused inflation. And that's not what causes inflation. And for those of you worried about the budget deficit being blown up by tax cuts, December's budget deficit was 40% higher than a year ago. So we've already blown up the
Right. We talked
deficit.
about that, I think, last week.
Right.
Right. Covered it.
Well, for those that missed last week, now they don't have to go back and watch it.
Well, no, we
Filling them
want them
in.
to watch every episode because there's always something to glean out of each one.
I'm not
Don't
known.
leave this episode to go watch that one. Watch it after this episode.
Right. Yes. Yes.
Well,
Morgan.
no, it's hard to believe. This is, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but this is season 2, episode 4.
Oh, yes.
And how many episodes is that in total? 52. It's hard to believe that I've had 52 interesting things to say, let alone the fact that we try to get 2 or 3 in each show. All right. So the Fed meets this week. They're not going to touch rates. They should all be kicked out if if anybody even votes for rate cuts with the economy doing as well as it is. We'll see what happens in the coming months, but we were expecting 1% decrease in short-term rates over this year, according to the Fed's own projections. That's not going to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if it was only half that or only a quarter of that. The economy is just too strong right now. You're adding fuel to the fire at this point, and it's your fault we're in this mess in the first place, Fed. So take your medicine and learn better. And call me before you make your next move. But for those of you saying, well, what should I watch other than the economic data that you harp on? The 10-year Treasury, that is the basis. But the Fed has no direct correlation to mortgage rates. That by cutting short-term rates, they could be making the rates for longer-term instruments like a 10-year Treasury go up. Because if you cut rates, you expect the economy to improve and do better. That means you're going to have more inflation down the road. And that's why it's almost a seesaw effect. By bringing the short-term rates down, the high-term rates can go up.
Yeah.
And that's why keep an eye on the 10-year Treasury. Usually that spread has been about 1.7% between what a 10-year Treasury is and what the 30-year mortgage
Hey,
is.
can you expand on the spread just so people understand?
Right. So there's a difference between 10 years and 30 years, right? So typically you're going to want a higher premium the longer you lend money. If I lend Morgan money for a day, maybe I don't charge her interest. I probably would. But, but
we want her to come back, so don't
Yeah,
charge
so
her a
maybe
lot.
not.
But, overnight is the federal funds rate, which is the rate the Fed monkeys with, right? They change it. But the longer I'm going to lend anybody money, I want a higher rate. If I think things are going to get better over the long run, usually you think that unless you have a reason not to. So that's why the yield curve the rate I'm going to charge you is upward sloping most of the time. When you're not excited about the future or you're raising short-term rates like we just went through, you have an inverted yield curve. And that usually signals a recession, which didn't happen yet anyhow.
I'll say numerous times you've had an inverted yield curve that
Right.
didn't result in a recession.
So usually you tack on, like you may see other rates might be prime plus a certain rate, things like that. It's typically been about 1.7% higher than the 10-year. That's actually closer to 2.4% now. There's been a lot of issues with banks lately. Remember the regional bank crisis? We saw it here in New York, and they saw it in Silicon Valley for sure. So, banks are allowed to make money.
Right. No, the reason to ask is because if people keep saying it's tied to the Treasury, and then you go look at the Treasury, and right now it's like 4.64%, then you go, but why then are mortgages close to 7%?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, where's that disconnect? Why such a spread? And
That's when you
what's in
call Scott Nadler
What's
and you
in
yell
that
at him and
gap?
tell him you want a lower rate.
Sure. And so you saw him on Crossing the Line, and that you hope that the co-host Crossing the Line discount is what you're looking for.
Yes. Well,
See if it'll give you any points.
right now Scott's watching this going, what? Why did
what
they
are
say
they
that?
doing? Stop.
We were
So
ju-
you sit with him every week. I can hide out. He doesn't see
we were
me.
just kidding, but Scott is a great resource. And again, you should talk to your professionals, whether it's a real estate agent, a mortgage lender. Get information. That's as long as you make an informed decision, you can be happy with that decision. If you make it out of anger, fear, haste, excessive happiness, you may regret that decision. And before we regret anything else, we have one more break to take.
What do you really need to know about buying or selling a home? First, it's serious business. And it's complicated. There's a lot of money on the table, and emotion too. You need an agent who knows the ropes. So, whether you're buying or selling your home, work with professionals who have a mastery of the craft.
And we're back for the last time, at least this episode. We'll see if there's another episode. Hopefully we'll be able to do it because we've got a lot of data coming out, as we mentioned. So NerdWallet did their 2025 home buyer report, which was a survey of 2,099 adults. I don't know why they couldn't get that one more to go to 2,100.
So, yeah.
I don't know.
Because they
could have
said,
called
yeah,
Morgan
just-
up. They could have called any. We
Questions got too
Someone
hard.
dropped out with the stomach bug. It's been going around lately.
I had that virus in December.
Oh, man.
It was
Yes,
awful.
sickness.
You were a mess.
But I'm better and lighter now. Now you have a lot less Greg
Literally
Heym
and
to get me.
figuratively.
Yeah, Thanks, Ray. I appreciate that. And the headline of the report was only 28% of Americans who planned to buy a home last year actually did. It's funny, I type actually did and Word keeps trying to correct it, saying it's like bad English. But I was using their words. So what was the main reason? Rising home prices was the big challenge.
Yeah.
So Morgan is somebody who's has a dream of buying a home, maybe?
Definitely, yeah. One day.
Do you understand that frustration? Do you feel that? Does that number sound about right to you? Did you have friends that said your sister bought a home, but
Yeah.
did you have other friends that said this is the year I buy a home and they didn't follow through?
Definitely. Like my sister bought a home, but she's probably been looking for over 2 years.
Wow.
So I think that in itself just speaks to the fact that a lot of people want to. I mean, you grow up, your parents have one, your grandparents have one. Like it's definitely an investment and an asset that you want to have. But I think something about going over the finish line on it just is like really daunting to young people and Gen Zers, millennials too. Like I just think the idea of going forth with that it's like the biggest decision, probably aside from getting married. That you
Well,
make in
it's
your life,
the
right?
biggest check I ever wrote.
Yeah,
Was that
that's for
down
sure.
payment for sure.
That's what it is for most people.
And I look,
feel.
I've been known to tease Gen Zers because again, I have one in my house.
That's okay.
But
Thick skin.
no, I was 36 when I bought my house for a variety of reasons. We were saving for some other things, and we looked off and on. And we would get frustrated because I bought at a peak time in the market. 2006 was the worst time I could have picked, to buy in Long Island. But I've never regretted the decision. My rate is less than half of what it was when I bought the house. So things change over time. But I understand the dauntingness of it. And you went through it too, twice.
Yeah, but you know what? Honestly, when the apartment wasn't that much of a frustration. I mean, I lived at home, so for me it was like, all right, if something didn't work out, I'm like, okay, still saving money.
Yeah.
My mom cooks; she's a great cook.
I'm still waiting to get
who needs
invited
to
for
leave
dinner.
that environment?
Yeah.
And I hear the stories, and I remember when my sister was getting married, and they were looking for a house, and the frustration. And honestly, I guess I just maybe hit it at the right time. I bought my house in 2013. I sold my apartment, which it had its own issues and that was different. But from May when I closed on the apartment, I closed on my house that September. I mean, it was a lot of work in and out of storage in my parents' house and, the back and forth. But I looked at 5 houses, found my house literally the weekend it came on the market. And I'm like, oh, we got to go look at it. I did. I'm like, it's exactly like the house I grew up in. Stood there
Because
and
it's
signed
right
it.
near the house you grew up in.
Okay, yes, I'm a couple of blocks from my parents, and Lucy and Lenny like that. Okay.
By the way, hey, Lucy,
But-
Lenny, I got to have the shout out. I don't give a shout out to my own mother, but
But no, so I never, and I'm very blessed that way, I guess. I never experienced that frustration because I found it was Father's Day weekend. We literally were standing there signing the buyer's agreement on the street corner so she could put the offer in. They were like, okay,
well,
we
when
got
you
a couple
find
of bidders.
it's like love when you find the right one.
No, but there were multiple bids on it, but I got the house. So,
Well, and-
I didn't have a lot of, but again, it may be too because of the same thing. I was living back at home. God bless my parents who were like, yeah, no, sure, honey, you can come home and stay with us while you house hunt. And I'm like, oh,
With
great.
any investment, no matter what it is, there's risk. unless you buy treasuries or whatever, and, or you get a CD in a bank, you know what you're getting. And somebody said something interesting to me about it. You know, this person said, well, "What are you worried about?" It's like, "What if I lose my job and I can't?"
You forget.
What me worry? I forgot.
What
we
me
have
worry?
Alfred Newman over here.
Hello.
All right, don't touch. He falls easy.
Sorry.
He's been drinking, I think. And Ron Gidry keeps making fun of him. He said, "What are you so worried about?" And I said, "What if I lose my job and I can't make the payments?" He goes, "You're buying it with the bank's money to a certain degree." You know, the things that I'm most proud of weren't easy things to do. Somebody graduating college and other raising kid or whatever it is, you look back, it's not an easy thing to do. It is a commitment. But if you're not going to bet on yourself, who are you going to bet on? And I think that was another thing that resonated with me. And I could say, if I'd have bought a couple of years earlier or waited a couple of years, I would have gotten a much better deal. But we looked off and on for years. And then something would interrupt us, and then we'd have to get back to it. But I haven't regretted it one day. And we found a great place to live. And it was the only house we looked at. And we looked probably at a couple dozen houses over a period of years where we drove away and we said, yeah, that could be the one. Like that never happened before. It's like, maybe.
I think as soon as I walked in, forget the fact that it's exactly like the house I grew up in. You just have that feel. It was like my apartment. I stepped in the door, hadn't even looked at it, and I'm like, okay, this is home. It just felt right. So at that point in time, I was willing to not so much do anything possible, but again, I didn't worry about how much the rate was because I had found my property that I was going to build my equity in.
Here's what you do. When you're ready to look for a house, you call up Lisa Ray and she'll...
Well, apparently I'm a good luck charm because I didn't have to look at a lot of apartments really either.
Yeah, how has that worked for the Mets? You're a good luck charm. All right.
Well, I don't go to regular games anymore. I'm not a season ticket holder anymore, so maybe that's
all right. So let's get on with the study here.
It was really interesting. I read the article. It was really fascinating.
Well, so now we have, we know we have this pent up demand because we're adding a lot of jobs in this country, and there aren't enough homes to go around, and people are getting priced out or rated out or whatever they want to call it. So this year, more Americans, 15% of them say they plan to buy in the next 12 months. And that's a higher percentage than in previous years. Here's the problem, though. And we're not asking you to speak for Gen Z, but explain this to me, because this is more than just Gen Z.
I'll try my best.
They hope to spend $259,000 on average for their home. The problem is the national median sales price is $404,000. So there's a big gap there. How do we solve that problem?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure where that math is coming from. I'm not sure where that.
Well, obviously, again, we've talked about how this has been weighted towards the high-end cash deals. We see that even in expensive markets like Manhattan, you expect to see that.
Yeah.
But, it's even become a bigger part because one thing people don't realize that about half of the apartments that sell in Manhattan that aren't new developments sell for under $1 million. So, we have affordable product here, relatively affordable. But do you think that's, now you worked with buyers?
Definitely.
Because one of the lessons I would say is, if you think you're going to set the price of something, you're not going to buy it. If you think you're going to get it for what you think it's worth, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
As an economist, it's what the market says it's worth.
Yeah.
But is that a problem among home buyers that they have this?
Yeah, definitely. I think that they have expectation, right? It's like when someone sells their own home, you're always going to think that the home that you live in is
worth a fortune.
Is worth,
right.
Greg lived here. Yes.
Oh yes, that added so much value.
Then they'll go to crossing the line with Greg Heym lived here, and they're like, yes, that Greg Heym.
Exactly. So I think that definitely plays a part. And I feel like the spring market will be really interesting because I think what we'll see is a lot of people who had their home listed in the fall and then it either didn't sell for, X, Y, and Z reasons, and then they took it off for the winter for 60 days, and then, they can show up, newer, kind of a fresher listing in the spring. I think it'll be really interesting to see what homes then go and what the market picks up then, because that's a big time for the buying market in general.
So here's that's error number one, right? Thinking that you're going to set the price. Like, this is what I want to pay for the house. That doesn't work that way. Supply and demand. That's that's why I became an economist.
Economics 101.
Yes, everybody's favorite class.
Yeah.
I hated my professor in Economics 101. I fought with him on a daily basis in class. I still got an A, but he was a
my.
terrible professor. Anyhow, so you have more hopeful home buyers, to use alliteration, which I try not to use because I'm not that smart. About 54% of prospective buyers have said they've already started looking at stuff, right? Because it's the easiest thing to do. I'll go on my phone or whatever and look at it. The problem is only 35%.
That was the part that I found interesting.
Only 35% have started a down payment fund. And that's not something that takes a couple of weeks. It's not a Christmas club.
No.
You know, it's
So anybody who's considering, if you're thinking you want to jump into any market at any time, start saving now without expectations of what you will or won't find, but start saving for that down payment
well,
now.
you should
Make a
always
commitment
be
to
trying
that.
to save because,
I think
you know,
No, but I think
costs
sometimes
come up.
that's where the disconnect comes in, where people think that they're only going to spend $200 and something thousand and not realizing what the median prices actually are. Like they're not realizing how much. Oh, I can afford a $400,000 or $500,000 home, but forgetting. Oh wait, but I have to afford
But not
down
only that,
payment first.
as we said before, they're forgetting that new home, well, the home they buy may need a new boiler.
Work.
It may need a new water heater.
Exactly.
It may need a roof.
And a lot
Right,
of
because
them are
I didn't buy
coming
it.
from
My house was
buildings that-
1962 when I bought.
That's Long
so-
Island.
Yeah.
No, but the boiler. I've since had to replace the roof and the little things that come up. Thank God, when I bought.
They're not so little, trust me. That they're not. I have 2 roofs, so I had to replace 2. My garage is detached,
Well, so is mine.
but my garage could swallow your garage. I mean, my garage, you could probably fit
battle of
4
the
cars.
garages.
I know, but
No.
you know what? My car goes
Is this
in
where
my
is this
garage.
where we've come to?
No,
My car actually houses my car in there. So
Yeah, that's great.
and the Christmas decorations.
See, we would
I don't know
fight
what they
over
do.
what car. All right, let's get back on. Point
I
here.
definitely think the down payment is the biggest hurdle because a lot of people rather be making mortgage payments than rent payments
Right.
because rent is just effectively throwing
I would say throwing it away. You are getting a place to live, and you need that.
Yes.
Right,
But
shelter.
you're
Shelter
not.
is important.
You're not
Shelter is very
building
important.
wealth.
Not to
and-
offend shelter, it's very important.
No, you're not. You're not building wealth through your home.
Yeah.
But again, too, you shouldn't only have a home as an investment. You have to have broad base of investments for a variety of reasons. Now you'd say, Greg, that sounds easy to do because you're a host of such a successful, wonderful podcast. Thank you, Ray. Lena hasn't clapped once the whole show. She's got things on her mind. Sorry, all right. So among home buyers, there are 2 categories, right? People that currently don't own homes and people that do. And for the people that are buying their first home or are currently renting, we know what's preventing them from buying homes, and also the cost of living is very high, right? We talk about inflation, which is still raging on for
Stubbornly high.
2.5 years, just going, even with what the Fed's done, and the rate of inflation has come down. But again, just because we like to say things over and over again, what we're seeing now is a little bit of disinflation. That means when the rate of increase of prices is going down. Deflation is when prices are actually going down, and that's not happening right now.
Yeah, we haven't seen that yet.
It should be going down for New York sports teams tickets since they don't win. But we're all in on the Knicks now because they actually look like they could be fun come playoff time.
Okay.
And we know that for current homeowners, if they want to trade up or down, the big thing preventing them from making that move is their rate. They don't want to trade 3 for 7.
We say it every time that you and I talk about housing on the I'm in at 3%. Why would it go anywhere?
Because you need to. Like, that's another thing. People do need to make these decisions, and that's why you saw when rates did get down to 6, some people say, I'll wait till 5.5. We had a lot of fun with Scott Nadler about, some of his conversations with people.
Yeah.
But, that's why you see all this action the last couple of months, because people jumped at that. Because, remember
The chance to save anything.
when rates topped out, they were topped out just under 8%, and people were really panicked.
Right.
But again, we always remind people, the average 30-year rate over the last half century is about 7.7%. All right, and this is the most depressing thing in here. And, you saw after the financial crisis, people's opinion about homes changed. You talked about, your parents, your grandparents, everybody has a home, says buy a home. Mm-hmm. After Lehman Brothers and everything that went on with mortgage-backed securities, people said, well, maybe it's not the great goal that we all should have. And that's true to a certain extent. Home ownership is not for everybody. If you tend to move around a lot, It's you don't want to strap yourself with a high mortgage payment because things do go wrong in your house. It has to be affordable and it has to be planned. But nearly 7 in 10 of the Americans surveyed, the 2,099 of them, say the housing market has never been worse for buyers than it is now. Now, talk to your parents and grandparents because they may tell you about the days of 16% mortgage rates and how difficult that was at a time when inflation was worse than it is now. There's always been moments. And when you look back at something that for a lot of people will be a very long-term investment, maybe 30 years or longer, you may have multiple mortgages during that time, but I don't look back at all and say, I should have waited. I should have kept renting. Look, the benefit to renting is you don't have to fix anything. You don't get those expenses. It's like buying a car, or leasing a car. Cars break down unless they're Teslas, then there's nothing to fix.
Saw that coming, right?
Of course.
Yep.
See, I being away from home, at least I was able to get my Tesla fixed because my brother has one. He was the guy that made me decide to buy
one. And he let you drive it?
No, I let him drive me around. What am I driving around Texas for? This is nowhere. Is
that the Kenny Mobile?
No, he doesn't
name it?
really have a name for his. He mocks my name of Greg Mobile, but tough. It's my car. You get your own Tesla. You name it.
It's a good name.
Yeah. And 54% of Americans say there's too much pressure to own a home in the U.S. I felt that pressure as somebody who bought a little later than some of my friends. But again, I had my own reasons. And for some people, look, student loans are a reason. Other goals, plans to maybe move and relocate somewhere else, that could delay your decision.
Cost of living in general.
Yeah, I mean, there are unfortunate things. People could lose jobs.
There's different flexibility, too, when you rent versus when you own. You rent something, your landlords might be flexible if you say, look, I'm moving across the country next week. Hey, okay, great. You know what? We'll let you out of the lease because they can get somebody higher.
Moving across the country next week?
No, but
that person has robbed a bank?
Yeah, but you own a house. You can't be like, I'm going to up and move like next month to Texas because I've got the house that could take months to sell and then to close. I can't just up and go, the flexibility. So for some people, renting is always just going to be their thing. Always. No matter how cheap rates get, how low prices come, they're always going to be renters. That's just like
and where we're at right now, Manhattan, 70% of the people that live here are renters.
Are renters already,
And I think, some of that urban areas tend to have higher areas of rental housing. It's a problem because wherever you go, most places will say we could use more housing. Obviously here in New York City,
for sure.
And in many of the markets in America where inventory is so low that prices have maintained very high levels, and people have the double whammy of rates that have increased and prices that have increased, and the price of everything else has increased. So, that is a challenge. And we feel your pain here on Crossing the Line. If you want to tell us about it, ctl@bhsusa.com. But, I guess the takeaway here is real estate's a long-term investment that takes a while to save for. Have a plan, work with professionals that can advise you. Sometimes your parents may not be the best source of advice because life was very different. Back, my parents had pensions. Morgan's going, what's a pension?
No, I know what a pension is.
It's something that we don't have. That's a pension. That has been phased out a bit. Things change over time. So, no, you should listen to your parents about many things. They're very wise people.
Yes.
They have homes and we don't.
Good to get a variety of opinions when it comes to this stuff.
And at times that people do view things differently. And I think with people having to invest more of their money in their retirement through 401k plans and things like that, homes maybe don't get the emphasis they used to. Or they just look at it's sticker shock, right? And I think that's part of it too. But, crunch the numbers, talk to a mortgage professional, work with a real estate professional, let them present opportunity for you, and then you see, at least then you have a goal. There's so many tools online to show you what you could afford. One of the things I did, I think I've shared this before, is I think I read this somewhere. What we did to make sure we could afford a home is we looked at a price range and rates, and we said, okay, the mortgage payment would be this, our rent payment is this. So we were forced for 6 months to save the difference and not touch it. then we felt we could afford the house.
Right.
And it worked out.
Yeah.
Obviously, buying a house younger has advantages because usually your salary goes up over time. But then again, you don't know what you're doing. That's when you need your parents. When
See?
Yeah,
and you laughed that
exactly.
my dad is 3 blocks from my house.
okay, they do have a car.
Just
They do
saying.
drive. They could
I
show
know.
up.
Yeah.
No, it's just you saying you bought a house near where you grew up and it was 3 blocks away.
My
Yes.
sister's house is 5 minutes away from my parents' house.
See, thank you.
And I'm sure your parents couldn't be happier
It was
about
That's
that.
just Long
listen, like I
Islanders.
tell
Like,
you,
we just
it
wanna
just was
stay
dumb
together.
luck. I mean, it really was just all meant to be. It just happened to come on the market, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna go look at that house. Price was right. I knew I had the down payment. Walked in, and I'm like, okay, feels like home.
Well, and for those of you who think you're never going to have a down payment or it's going to take very long, things change. We could spend hours talking about,
Yeah.
especially in my life, how it's been a series of accidents that have mostly
Right.
been fortunate things. But,
Well, look, the
don't
best-
rule it out.
No, but I would say the best lesson that, we talk about our parents, one of the best lessons that I ever gotten, especially from my dad, from the day that I started working, you have money to save. It doesn't mean when you're saving, that doesn't mean it has to be thousands of dollars. People think if they're saving $1, $5, $10 because they skip the latte once a week.
Or saving a lot on their car insurance.
Right, no, but people think that skipping, it's not going to make an impact, but it does because all the little things start
I
to add
get
up.
it.
And
Yeah.
my dad was always adamant, you have a little bit of money always to save. You can skip one little thing and there you go. Once you get started, it becomes a lot
Yeah, it's
easier.
called one of those things is called the latte factor. Skip that latte every day and you'd be surprised.
Yeah.
Someone's going, yeah, I'm going to save the whatever I need for my down payment by skipping. No, but it does put the idea in your mind and you'll think
It
twice
starts a
about
plan. That's
those
the
things.
point, is that it starts a habit and it starts a plan. And once you start doing it, you would be surprised how easy it can be to cut all the little things that
Yeah.
really end up at the end of the month that add up.
I
Well,
feel like one thing about like Gen Zers and just the younger generation is it's like immediate gratification, right? And that's the era of TikTok and all these apps, right? You watch a
And we
video
didn't
for
grow up with
15
that.
seconds.
right.
If it's not funny, then you move on to the next. And,
Plus,
like,
it's not even
something
the
needs to catch your
generation.
attention.
It's
Yeah.
younger kids. Like my son's like, can I have this? And I
Yeah.
buy it for him. If he had to buy it for himself, he would realize it takes a while to do.
And it's
you know?
the choice to like have the latte, right? Because it's going to be really good and I'm going to enjoy it right now. And like, I don't want to think about that it'll save me in a month from now. Like, it's the
Because you're
same
also
thing.
thinking, like, sometimes in terms of, it's only $5.
Yeah.
What's saving $5
Exactly.
going to do? But, you'd be surprised.
Well,
when
talk
you-
to your parents. They'll tell you what $5.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. So that's what I say. Probably
what
one of
they
the
used to
best
be able
lessons.
to get with it.
That's what my dad instilled in us.
You should bring back piggy banks, right? Just take $1 a day, put it in a piggy bank, and then you'll have.
But this is where I love if you ever see in banking, they have that save the change, or
Yeah.
so they take so if you're spending things on your debit, it rounds up and it takes that. So it's automatic savings that people can do without even giving a lot of thought to it.
Yeah.
Anything that you can do that gets you on the path to start saving will make you feel more comfortable down the road when you're ready to make that big purchase. You're going to feel like, okay, I can save the money.
All right. We'll end on that happy note. So how did it go your first time here?
It went great. I mean, you think
I think you
getting
did a
claps.
wonderful job.
I'm getting claps from Ray, so
Yeah.
maybe it's going well.
He claps for everybody. Don't
He claps for me. And,
you get a
You've
clap?
seen my shows.
You get a clap from Lena, then you've arrived. Okay.
I got a little one. That's good. I
You
feel
know,
good about that.
You did a wonderful job, and we didn't tell you we were going to bring you in here.
Nope, this is like 10 minutes
So like
before.
10 minutes
I was
before,
like,
through,
you really pushed me in the pool, but I think I swam, right?
Yes.
Well, I didn't push you in the diving pool. There's a difference between the diving pool and the pool you can stand in. So,
Shallow end.
The shallow end.
I wouldn't want your family to show up and be looking for me, except here on Crossing the Line with Greg. As always, a shout out to my buddies at Canaletto who offer free lunch to our guests. 208 East 60th Street. Say hi to Elvis. Make sure you say Greg told you had to come here, else he was going to go looking for you. No, it's a great restaurant. And I'm headed there right after we wrap this up, which should be right about now. So thanks to Ray and Lena. Thanks to our sponsors, the Everset CrossCountry Mortgage. And most of all, thanks to all of you for supporting the show. And have a great week.